summer, the coast lay pale and patient, as if it had all the time in the world. And so did I, a child with pockets full of marbles and a heart already learning how to listen. We came to Aunt Mabel's cottage by the inlet, where the dawn fog hung like a quilt, and the hedges spilled the scent of lilac and damp earth. The air smelled of tar and salt and bread that rose in the oven, and every morning the kettle sang a small, hopeful song, as if a new day could somehow be coaxed to kindness by heat and steam. I slept on a cot in a room that smelled of linen and soap, and outside the window a row of hardy daisies stood in patient little columns, as if they were guarding the hours until the sun decided to loosen itself completely from the horizon. Grandpa Joe arrived with a tote bag full of old things that should have been thrown away, but were salvaged anyway. A board with a patch of rough wood, a coil of frayed rope, a dented tin can that once held beans and now held nothing but memories. He had the habit of moving slowly, as if the world whispered to him, and he obliged by listening in return. I followed him down to the water's edge, where the inlet wore a ribbon of glassy light, and the boats rocked in their moorings like sleeping dogs. The boat we fixed, or rather the boat Grandpa fixed while I watched with wide eyes, was a ramshackle thing. Planks patched with tar, and a dent in the stern where a storm had once pressed itself against it and won a small victory. The harbour smelled faintly of fish and old rope, of kelp drying in the sun, and the distant thunder of a fisherman's conversation carried on the wind. Grandpa handed me a brush and a can of dull black tar, and his hands moved with the careful confidence of someone who had learned to mend more fragile things than a boat. A day's memory, a promise, a stubborn part of the heart. "Patience, kid," he said, as if patience were an instrument to be tuned, a melody that could be learned with practice rather than merely wished for. He showed me how to coax a chorus of tiny nails into loose boards, how to press the canvas tight against the ribs of the hull, how to coax the wood to drink the tar without letting it drink back the other way and leak through into our gloves. The tar thickened my fingers with its warm, greasy weight, and the smell rose up, the acrid, almost sweet scent of a binding thing being made whole again. We worked in the morning's pale light, and by noon the boat looked less like a joke and more like a stubborn creature that would carry us across the water if only we asked it nicely enough. Grandma's voice came from the kitchen window, calling us to eat, always to eat, with the same soft insistence that the tide has for the moon. We ate bread warm from the oven, tomato wedges kissed by the sun, and the way her clove-studded tea steamed in the cups held a memory of all the evenings that would come later, when the kettle sang its tired, hopeful note and supper would finish with the careful clink of cutlery and the quiet between people who had learned to listen to one another's sighs as a kind of language. That afternoon, we tried the boat's first float. Grandpa pushed it gently into the shallows, and the water answered with a shy ripple, as if it too was curious whether a miracle might happen when two stubborn souls decided to trust a patched boat. I stood clutching the gunwale, knees damp with fear and delight, while Grandpa steadied the oars with a practiced, patient ease. The launch did not go far before the boat settled into its old, patient rhythm, and the inlet's light stretched across the water like a warm, patient friend. The city's noise seemed to fall away here, replaced by the sound of small waves learning to lie down, and the soft snick of the oar as it cut the water. We drifted a long way for a boat that was barely seaworthy, listening to the distant clamour of the market from the town, the metallic clatter of a train that seemed absurdly far away, and the muffled laugh of a woman at the bakery who knew the world would still be there when she pulled the loaf from the oven. The sun lowered, a slow coin dropping into the pocket of the sea, and the world glowed with that particular, almost fierce kindness you only see in late summer, the way light falls through leaves and makes patterns on the water, and the way a boy's heart is suddenly much larger than its summer clothes would allow. Grandpa spoke then, not to instruct, but to tell, as if the telling itself could fix something that time kept loosening with every breath. He spoke of boats and storms, and places where the water kept the memories of old sailors in its swell, where even the gulls spoke with a tired wisdom. He did not lecture me. He simply offered me his stories as a harbour offers shelter, open and enduring, a place to rest and become a part of something bigger than a single summer. The boats did not stay perfect. A day or two later, a squall rose, dark as a child's fear and twice as sudden. The wind slapped the water, and the old patchwork boat shuddered as if it remembered how it had learned to endure the worst weather with a stubborn grace. We rowed it out, Grandma's eyes watching from the kitchen window, her hands folded in an unspoken prayer. After the rain, the air smelled of pennywort and rain on stone, the kind of scent that makes a grown person feel a child again, and a child feel like a kind of grown person in training for all the hard, patient tasks life would demand of them. That memory, the day we turned a shabby thing into something usable by a family that believed in second chances, grew into something quiet and large inside me. It became the lens through which I learned to see people not as they appeared, but as they might become if given time and warmth. I learned from Grandpa that the world's imperfections were not reasons to abandon something, but invitations to roll up one's sleeves and do the quiet work of repair. It wasn't grand or glamorous, but it was true, a lesson in mercy, in the long, patient work of keeping things from breaking apart when they most wanted to. Over the years, I forgot the scent of tar and the precise shade of that inlet's water on 100 mornings, but I did not forget the feeling of standing beside him and feeling the world settle, if only for a moment, into something like certainty. He taught me to listen to the surface of things, the way a boat's creak tells you about the weather, the way the heart whispers when it is tired of pretending to be brave. He showed me that repair is a kind of love, that patience is a form of courage, and that hope often glistens not in bright miracle, but in the small, stubborn acts that keep a life from sinking. In the years that followed, I did not always have a Grandpa Joe to show me the way, but I found his lessons in other places, in the bow of a ship I never expected to sail, in the hopeful cadence of a neighbour's knock at the door when a bill is due, in the soft forgiveness of a friend who has seen you in your worst light and still chooses to sit with you through the long hours that follow. I saw the same careful, quiet workmanship in nurses who steadied tremoring hands, teachers who coaxed a shy child into speaking softly enough to be heard, a mother who mended a torn shirt with the same resolve she used to mend a broken heart. And now, when the sea is a memory I carry in my pocket, like a smooth, small stone, I still hear that word, patience. I still hear Grandpa's voice, not in a booming sound, but in the precise turn of a sentence, the way he would pause before a story, as if letting the air collect itself before the good part came along. I learned to be a watcher of small miracles. The way a door opens to let a child in, the way a kettle's whistle announces a safe home. I learned to measure life in the cycles of repair and rest, in the patience that teaches you to wait for a season to soften the edges of pain, and to give you the chance to begin again. Time when you are old.